Thank you. Right, I would, yes, so it's a Saturday, and welcome to our 15th of June 2024 session on African Unification. And I'd like to welcome Brother Mafole, Dr. Duce, DJ Mr. P, Jack Alecho Oita, and Brother Pigeon. We hopefully will be joined by others, but as you know, although many people don't tend to join us, they watch our videos online. And so we have lots of people who have subscribed and who listened and watch our videos. So we shall today, as usual, do our news analysis. We shall then hear commentaries, and we shall also have discussions all around unification of the continent. And in the course of doing that, we shall hear a presentation from our own brother, who is Brother Jack Alecho Oita. He will do a presentation on taking back ownership of the Africa habitat. It is Brother Alecho's contention that Africa has to date not been taken over by the owners of Africa, despite the fact that they have sent hundreds and hundreds of their children to school to acquire the tools for better decision making. But unfortunately, the sons and daughters who have been sent to school to acquire the tools to help make to help the nationalities make a better decision to take over the African habitat have largely privatized the tools and are not enabling the nationalities make better decisions for life and human happiness. So in the course of, therefore, discussing the unification of the continent, our own brother Jack will share a presentation with us, after which he will hear questions and provide answers, and then we shall continue with the discussion, and hopefully we shall hear from everyone. There's a saying that the fewer the merrier, so there are not a lot of people here, although they will watch on the YouTube. It means those of us here can have a deeper conversation, a more sustained conversation, and an extensive conversation. So thank you all for coming. We shall start, like I said, with the news analysis, which means we'll hear the news from anyone here who has a news that they want to share with us that in their view pertains to the unification of the continent. We do share the newspaper called The Continent, produced in South Africa. We share it with everyone. It's there for you to read. And if you've read in there or anywhere else, any news that you think should be discussed or that you want to bring to our attention with respect to the unification of the continent, then feel free to do so. So I want to open the floor now so that anyone who has any news can share with us. As Brother DJ Mr. P is himself a DJ and hosts a radio station, I would like to start with DJ Mr. P, also because he hears from a lot of people across the world because of his role. So DJ Mr. P, are you able to start the news for us in terms of unification? What is around the world that you'd like to bring to our attention?
Thank you, my brother. Thank you so much. Greetings, peace, and Pan-Africanism to everybody here. A good evening to one and all. Ubuntu we stand, and divided we fall. In some UK news, very quickly, just touching on a couple of items here in the UK. Whether or not you love animals, there's a big story that's just broken today. Police have actually run over a cow. A small cow. Yeah, this is very, very big news here in the UK at the moment, and it's bounced and will be bouncing all around the world. But it just goes to show a lot about the how they treat or ill-treat animals in what's known as an animal-loving country. So when you take a look at how they're treating the animals, and then you take a look at how we're being treated. Is there any surprise? Not at all. Not in my opinion, anyway. Taking a look at the weather, absolutely nothing to talk about. This is the coldest June I have ever experienced in this country. And I don't know what's going on. They're probably harping up the skies, but I'm really looking at the moment to get on a plane and fly somewhere, because I just need some heat in my skin. Now, over to the continent. Niger has actually lifted immunity on the deposed President Bazoum, which is interesting. So it'll be good to see what they're going to do with him, and what comes of that, and what they mean exactly by immunity. Also, Nigeria gets a loan. I find it quite paradoxical. Yeah. The economic powerhouse of the continent, Nigeria, wants a loan of $2.5 billion from the World Bank. What for? God alone knows. And also in Uganda, this is actually I find quite funny. Ugandan artifacts have been held here in the UK for how many years or decades, have actually been returned to Uganda on loan. They've been returned on loan for 4 years. So you go into someone's country, you take their artifacts, put them in your museum. They will say that they want them back. And you say, okay, we will loan you your artifacts for 4 years, and then we'll take it back and put it back in our museum. So that's I think that's it. I don't think I think there may have been one other story to bring up.
DJ Mr. P,
Yes, sir.
interesting the stories are. Can you link them with unification? How do you see them relating to our unification?
Okay.
You can take anyone you like. You don't have to do all of them. You can take one of them and then try and share with us your perspective on how you think it relates to our unification.
Okay, let's have a look at Nigeria and this loan. Yeah, borrowing money from the West. That all that has done as a people, as a country, as a continent.
DJ Mr. P, how much did you say they were borrowing from the World Bank?
2.5 billion.
2.5 billion. Excellent. Carry on, please.
Yeah, 2.5 billion. Yeah. For me, when you borrow money from the West, you're doing a deal with the devil, basically. And Nigeria, well, rich and wealthy as Nigeria is, I really don't understand what they're going to be borrowing this money for, why they need to borrow it. And they've only just set up this refinery. Okay, they haven't started pumping the oil. But when you are there begging the West for help which you probably don't actually need, you may think you need, but you don't need, you've got to be very careful, very choosy who you go to for help when you do need help. And this is something that, as not even Africans, but just as a people, just you know, in the diaspora and on the continent, what I see is the mindset, this begging bowl, this poverty mindset that has us think and believe that we don't have what we need, and everybody outside of ourselves has better. What we have is never good enough.
Yeah. DJ Mr. P,
Uh-huh.
on the screen,
yeah,
is a mountain or a hill in Ethiopia.
Right.
And that on that hill, the president of Ethiopia, Abiy, is building a new residence for the powers that be in Europe. It would include a hotel, it would include suites, it would include swimming pools and so on for
a luxury palace, palace
for visiting heads of states.
Mhm.
Now, guess how much this will cost well, the claim is not from state coffers, like from the private sector. But guess how much this will cost? How many billions?
Millions or billions?
Billions.
What?
Yes.
I
Well,
was
let me
going
help
to
you. It will
say
cost, according
50.
to Abbott Parliament recently, it will cost 10 billion.
10 million.
10 billion, not
Yeah,
million,
with
billion.
a B. Yeah, 10 billion.
Now, how much did you say that Nigeria is asking the World Bank?
He borrowed 2.5 billion from a quarter of that.
Good. So what is telling us, if we're linking this to unification of Africa, here is one part of the continent that has 10 billion to spend on the palace, and another part of the continent is going to borrow 2 billion.
A quarter of that from the West.
Clearly, Ethiopia can give 2 billion to Nigeria.
Correct.
Without Nigeria having to borrow.
Correct.
So if you look at it in terms of unification of Africa, you could argue from the Nigerian angle you have picked up that actually if we unite the continent within Africa itself, we can find the resources to do all these things.
Exactly. That's my point. We have all the wealth we need. Why are you going outside looking for wealth? Why? And not only that, Nigeria, as they're a huge, I think the sixth largest producer of oil on the planet. And you're borrowing money? To me, it's paradox. It just doesn't make sense.
Thank you so much, brother DJ Mr. P. Let's hear from someone else. Let's hear from a sister. Yeah, thank you. So we are talking about the news and its relation to the unification of Africa. So please share any news you like from the continent or around the world that relates to the unification of Africa. And then as we have this discussion, our own brother Jack will then do a presentation of how we can take back ownership of the Africa habitat. We've got both Sister Myra and Sister Chichizomo here, and either of them can speak on any news they like. But let me call one of them. If they're not ready, the other one can speak for now. So, Sister Myra, do you have any news you can share on the unification of Africa from the continent or around the world? Anything you have seen, anything you are seeing, it's up to you. Yes.
I didn't come prepared with any particular piece of news, but I think the thing that I've kind of noticed this afternoon was the news that ANC and DA have gone into some kind of coalition.
Sorry, who?
The ANC
the ANC, right?
South Africa.
Sorry,
Yeah.
we can't hear you properly. So
yesterday,
speak into the microphone, so we can hear you. Yeah, go on.
The ANC and DA have formed some kind of national unity, something, which I feel is sad. I don't have much to say, but I was just sharing something that's on my mind.
Do and related to unification of Africa for us, because that's the point for Saturdays. Anything we are sharing should relate to how it hinders or promotes Africa's unification. And to help you, Sister Myra, I'm sharing the story as in the continent. Thank you.
I think on the surface, I think a lot of Pan-Africanists have been saddened or saddened by this news, because the DA is another party that was basically the face of apartheid, and now it's strange, So I think at the moment it might seem like unification or any progress towards the Africa we want is far. But for myself, I'm always the optimist when it comes to unification. I don't have anything profound to say, but just to tell comrades out there, maybe some have been following and perhaps maybe feel down.
Sister Myra?
Yes.
We know you're saying, but could you just link it to the unification of Africa for us, liberation of Africa and the development of Africa? How will this either develop, liberate, or unite the continent? If you can link it to that, that would be
I don't think it would develop or unite the continent, what I hope it will do is that it will make the younger people open their eyes and maybe work towards a solution, real solution to African unification. But in itself, I don't think it will do any good. Yeah, sorry, I don't have anything really profound to say. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Doche. Any news you want to share with us on the continent or abroad that you think relates to the unification of Africa? Please unmute yourself and share with us. Thank you. Right. Is Dr. Doche ready? If not, I'll come back to him. Let's go to Sister. Oh, he's not ready yet. Yeah. So, yeah, Sister Chisomo.
Hello.
Yes. Can you share the news with us? Thank you.
Well, is that news that happened recently or
Any news around the world, wherever you are? Where are you based, by the way? Are you also based in the UK?
I'm in UK,
Yeah.
but I'm from Malawi. You might have heard what happened in Malawi.
Share that with us, because your vice president just died in an accident.
Vice President died mysteriously. So those are the things that take us back. So I just had somebody talk about asking for assistance from the West all the time.
Yes, sister, here's the story in the continent on Malawi.
Sorry?
The story is on the
Yes.
screen. Yes.
Yes.
So yeah.
So
carry on.
So that happens, and then they're looking for help from United Kingdom, Israel, and United States. So I'm thinking, how is that going to help anything? So it's those kind of things that instead of contacting nearby people, nearby countries, or getting the plane to land in a nearby country if there was problems in Malawi. So it's those kind of things, and the mindset is a bit of a problem when it comes to dealing amongst ourselves and dealing with the West. I don't know how we can convince these governments to work with the diaspora instead.
But Sister Chisomo, you are of the view that we should amend the constitution of the AU.
Yes,
that's something you have talked about a lot. But
yeah,
how do you link this story to amending the AU? When, like you're saying, they can't even call on their own neighbors.
Yeah, so I link this
Malawi
story.
can't call on its neighboring states.
Yeah, so the AU doesn't say anything about it or the other events that are happening in Africa. And there's on the constitution, there's also a provision, an institution, a court system within the AU. What does it do exactly? Who goes there? What kind of cases do they take? So when these sort of things happen and people are wondering how this happens, can we use those courts for anything about what's happening on the continent? And just to give you an example of the provisions that was given last time that block things from happening, those are the kind of amendments we should be campaigning for, to get rid of them. And make proposals as to how these things should be changed and how they should be working.
In terms of the unification of the continent and the Malawi situation, where the news headline says the best president Malawi never had, and here we have Chilima dead. So in terms of the continent as a whole, its unification, how do you see the impacting the unification of Africa. Because here you have a president, somebody who could have been president, just died in, like you said, in mysterious circumstances. And how do you relate this to the continent's unification?
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Things are happening because we're so chopped up. Everybody's doing their own thing, having their own procedures that don't tie up with the Africa Union itself. So everybody has makes their own decisions or do things. If it was unified, we would have some procedures. When this happens, Africa Union would have some kind of involvement to kind of help, whether with them, because we didn't have a helicopter to go and look for this plane. So that would be the first call of point, and then they would then send somebody from another country nearby, try to coordinate stuff, help us, you know. But we're going all the way to United Kingdom instead of Africa Union, and to America, United States, when we've got our own United whatever. That's not getting involved in anything or anything at all.
Thank you. I hope the rest of us are hearing what Sister Chizomo is saying. And this happens again and again and again. When we had a health situation in, I believe it was Sierra Leone some years ago, we were able to mobilize the entire continent. And I remember Accra was the mobilization point, and the continent as well was able to rally and deal with the health situation in Sierra Leone. And I think what Sajizomo is saying is that there is still room for us to develop Africa's unification. That we are a long way from a unified continent, but the presidents themselves within the AU cannot themselves even organize, within themselves, a rescue for a fellow president. So what are they going to do after us, the ordinary people?
So there's something in the process, in the rules, in the policies, in the constitution that's not tightly knitted to be able to do these things. That's why somebody can just go away and do their own thing and not involve them, because they are free to do so. So
okay. Thank you
that
so
needs
much.
tightening up so that we have a source, we have somewhere to go. Because it doesn't have to be the leader themselves. Even us can go and say, what's happening here? Can you help us as citizens?
Thank you so much, Chizomo. I'd like to just share something that your vice president is purported to believe in. I've highlighted it on the screen. It says he managed to popularize the idea of building a Malawi that would work for us all, regardless of our position in society, said Kim Singa. So apparently, the late vice president was able to mobilize the country around this idea. Now, if you will all recall, this mobilization of the entire country around this idea is what we stand for. And what we are saying, when I say we here, I mean the radical Pan-Africanists. Jack will call them the rejectionists. He will come to that in a moment. What we are saying is that we want an Africa that works for all of us, not just the presidents, the prime ministers, and their immediate family. We want an Africa which, by which we mean the welfare of the people is the supreme law. So in the same way as the late late vice president of Malawi believed in that, I mean, sorry, our condolences are with the Malawian people. I think we've got to look at how we can take this idea of his and say to the people of Africa, look, here is the late vice president who believed in this idea. Let us make it Africa-wide. Thank you so much, Sister Chizomo of Malawi. Can we hear from
Just one more thing. You see, when all these things are happening in different countries and then the reports go out and they are reported, mostly the reporters know half the truth of the story. They don't know the complete story. So when you report these things and somebody from the country is reading and you're thinking, is that what really happened? No. So how come AU has no reporters, researchers to actually come up with all these institutions like the courts and whatever to find out what happened on the ground?
Yeah. I mean, you're right. I mean, so if we had a union that was working, when somebody dies on the continent like that, the union must be able to mobilize its own internal resources. If there was foul play, if Chizomo, sorry, not Chizomo, if the vice president was killed, then we should know. The institutions must kick in and find out. Now, thank you very much, Sister Chizomo. Let's move on now to Brother Doche, if he's ready now to share his story. So he's in Ghana, I believe, and if he has a story to share with us on any story that will either hinder or advance the unification of Africa, that would be great. Now, we shall all notice that the news that we are hearing from members is aligning with what the continent is also reporting. In this case, as Sister Ida will always say, let not one person speak. So now we are letting everyone say what they think is an important story. And then it turns out that the story that they are talking about has links with what the continent is also reporting. So thank you for those who have spoken. Dr. Doche, please unmute yourself and share.
Sorry, I'm sharing the okay, I'm in a meeting with another meeting, so maybe I might not be able to contribute so much. Maybe
but do you have any news you can share with us? If not, it's fine. We can
not really.
Right. Thank you very much. Brother Mafole, any news from where you are, from Lesotho? What is happening around the world in Lesotho? Yeah, that you can share with us, that is either advancing or not advancing the unification of Africa. Thank you.
Good evening.
And Brother Mafolo will be sharing with us next week, I believe. He'll be sharing with us. He'll do a presentation for us also.
We will be doing a presentation on 25th. I think 25th or 29th.
Which is the week after that. Yeah, thank you.
The week after that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Yes, Brother Mafole.
Good evening, brothers and sisters. I'm interested in the two stories that have just been shared with us by the two sisters. The coalition government in South Africa and the sad situation in Malawi. For me, they underscore one common challenge. Even though Sister Grace sees it as a challenge for our constitutions, I see a more fundamental challenge because those constitutions are written by us and implemented by us. For me, what it says is we have to work harder on changing our own mindsets. We have to work harder on going out of our coloniality and decolonizing. I think that is what will help us. Constitutions are there, we undermine them, but we write them to our own advantage. But if we ensure that all of us, tough work, though it is, but if we ensure that all of us can think positively about or for the benefit of every one of us, then things will change. That is the only thing that is holding us back, that we are each thinking about our own interests and not the interests of even these people who vote for us. I think that's the bill I'll submit.
Now, Brother Mafole, on the question of mindset, what are you saying about mindset? Just briefly, because here we are talking about the mindset for the liberation, the unification, development of Africa. So I want to share with you something on the screen on the current mindset amongst our youth who are trying to leave the continent to Europe, and Europe has paid the Moroccans and the Tunisians and the Libyans millions of pounds, so they can intercept the youth. They keep them in the desert, and then they send them back, and that's a picture. So, can you just link this to unification, the mindset for us, please? Thank you, Brother Mafole.
Thank you. The challenge that we face with coloniality is the type of thinking that we are made to, where we've been hardwired to believe in. We believe that it is so good that there are security people who can discipline others. Whereas what we ought to be focusing on so that we can unite as a continent is to ensure that these youth are able to think properly, to create their own jobs in their own countries, and not be wanting to go out there to Europe to people who want to benefit out of us. And then they are making them some sort of a sport or game, paying Moroccans to harass these young people. These young people should be at home, working at home to improve their own economies, and not borrowing as we were told, and not borrowing from abroad.
Yes, thank you so much, Brother Mafole. The time is 7:42 GMT London time. Our brother Jack will be speaking at 7:45, which is in 3 minutes time. So we'd like to hear from one more sister on the news. Please, if you haven't got any news, no worries. Don't tell us you haven't got any news if you haven't got any news, because we don't want to hear that you don't have any news. If you don't have any news, just say pass.
Can I comment on the young people?
Hold on. Is that Sister Tapua?
No, it's Grace Chisomo.
Yeah, Grace, we've heard from you. Let another sister speak, please. I hope you don't mind. Sister, you, by the way, Sister Chisomo, you will speak again once Brother Jack has presented. The floor will be open for more discussion. Sister Shaza, can you please share with us any news that you'd like to share with us on the unification of Africa? If you can do it in 2 minutes, that would be great. So Brother Jack can share with us. Sister Shaza, thank you.
Yeah, greetings.
Greetings.
Sorry, I haven't got anything to add.
So you want to pass? Okay, that's okay.
Last week, yeah, I haven't really got much.
That's okay. Sister Ida. So it's the sisters' turn, so I'm going around the sisters.
Sorry, I'm out, but I haven't got any news at the moment, please. I'll try and... Yeah, I'm coming home. I'm going home, so thank you. Bye-bye.
That's okay. Thank you. Right. Okay, so since the sisters don't have anything to say, let's hear from Sister Chizomo again whilst Brother Jack gets ready for his presentation in 2 minutes. Sister Chizomo, the floor is yours again. Thank you.
Just a comment on the young people looking to the West for jobs and things like that.
Yeah, please, can you link it to what is on the screen? Because this is what is happening to young people. They are being abducted. Well, some will say arrested, some will say they are being intercepted, kept in camps in Morocco and other countries for weeks. Some of them have broken noses. Some of them have lacerations. They are then sent back, no money, nothing. And yet these countries are taking money from the EU, and our young people are being really maltreated. It's appalling, it's unacceptable, and so on. So if you can link that story, what you want to comment to that.
Yeah, so what I want to say is the mindset, the idea for going to the West for greener pastures starts at the top. If the leaders are going to the West for help and they give a picture that the West is the one that saves Africa, African government, African whatever, and also coming up with schemes that says all these young people must go to Israel, must go to Arab world. They are organizing these schemes and the agents to take these young people over there. There was one video, but it's in my language, so I can't share it. where the woman then says, in fact, there are about 3 of them. So there are agents in the country organized to recruit for these schemes. So people go there. Some people don't even get there. Like the article is saying, they are sent back. The money is gone. They are sent back, or they get there and then it's a completely different story for what they were sent there for. So there's a syndicate that's going on that's linked to human trafficking, that's linked to corruption, that's linked to, because money is given from government, between governments, to set these schemes up, which lead to nowhere really. So the young people, in their minds, oh, that's where the opportunities are. That's where the opportunities. If the government can set up those schemes, it must be good. So.
Thank you very much. So on the screen is our session for today, which is part of our.
Brother,
yes, Brother Pigeon.
Permit me just to record the apologies of Sister Tapua, who was some emergency.
Yes,
and also
correct.
Senator Morgan from Zimbabwe is also not feeling well, and Sister Pamela as well is also not feeling well. Those are the apologies I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much for letting us know.
Brother Kwame, sorry to interrupt again. I had my hand
up. I know your hand has been up. Yes, go on.
Okay. Yeah, very, very quickly. I just Chizomo actually stole my thunder because I wanted yeah, yes, sister. I wanted to talk about the youth and what's actually going on in Africa.
Can you, brother?
I'll summarize very quickly. Yeah.
DJ Mr. P, can you hold on those thoughts, because what brother Jack is about to share will actually enable you even add more to it.
Beautiful. All right. Okay. Cool.
So let's hear what brother Jack has to say.
Yeah.
Brother Jack will only be speaking. I will be the one that will be moving the slides for him.
Okay.
From page to page. So, Brother Jack, welcome. Just so we all know, Brother Jack is a dear brother of mine. He is originally from Uganda, but he now lives here. And we met at a session that was being presented by a brother in South London. And brother Jack was there, and he did a presentation on Africa, and I just loved his presentation, and I got in touch with him just so I can know him, and then we became friends after that, and we are such great friends. He's my senior brother, and I love him very much. Brother Jack.
Good evening to Kwame.
Yeah, thank you. Yes. So.
Yes. Yeah, but my full names are there, Jack Alecho Oita, as it has been mentioned that I live in UK, Africa, person from Uganda, and over the years, I have met a lot of other people, and it enabled me or drove me to writing this book, Taking Back Ownership of Africa Habitat. The book is available in Amazon. Kwame probably will put that, on the screen at some point, whereby you could see the summary of what the book is about. And on that basis, I would say that the challenges that you have all been talking about goes back to the heading of this discussion, which is taking back ownership of Africa Habitat, and fundamentally what I wrote about in this taking back ownership of Africa Habitat. Next.
Jack, would you like me to read the summary?
Yeah, you can read the summary.
Okay. All right, let me go back and read the summary. So the summary says, the expressions and content of this publication is about the struggles to take back ownership of Africa. It provides pointers to the Africa spheres as to what they must do to assume their responsibilities and role after taking back the ownership of the Africa habitat. The struggles of Africa person are that of taking back control of the habitat from being a private estate of faceless non-Africa individuals not known to any Africa person. In this context, the 1884 Berlin Conference has sketches on the privatization process of the habitat by disparate non-Africa individuals, concluding centuries of creeping control of the Africa resources. The Berlin Conference record of attendance shows that non-African nations were represented. However, the covert outcome of the experiences of Africa person was not accounted for, and nothing in the record show there was any concern. There is no sign that the nationalities are tiring from sharpening their spears to take back the habitat bequeathed to Africa person for African nationalities by Africa ancestors. Taking back Africa habitat is not an aspiration, but a responsibility. Thank you.
Right. About the Africa sphere. Africa, let me start with the usage of the word Africa. I have changed from the Africa with the C to Africa with the K because the Africa with the C was constructed by non-African people wherever they were, and they started calling it Africa with the C. But Africa with the K is about the fundamentals of being able to claim that we are not Africa with the C, but Africa with the K. So our Africa with the pronunciation Africa is to cement and strengthen the wording and the presence of our person in Africa, and not to associate with the whatever they want to call Africa with the sea, whatever they want to call it. So that is to make that distinction very clear. Now, any Africa person who has been anywhere in Africa, whether you have gone there for good intentions or for just a celebration or something, you will all find that the sphere is very, very central in either in the homes or in the celebrations, in the movement and things that the sphere is mentioned in very many different ways, either through all the struggles in Africa, the word sphere gets mentioned. Now, why the mentioning of the sphere becomes critical tool that is there to be sharpened, and the answer shaped it in very many different ways. They sharpened them in different ways, and so that they would then work very hard with so that they could retain control of the Africa habitat. Now, what the ancestors left for us, the progeny, is exactly the responsibility of a shaped spear, a sharpened spear, and how that can be used to take back control of the Africa habitat. That is where the strength of Africa's spear in its usage here comes from. Next. Next. Now, I am one of those claiming and asserting that I am one of the spears that has been shaped and sharpened from my younger days to my growth process to my understanding things about Africa. Now, I happen to have been privileged to have made some journeys across Africa in very many different ways. And on that, I was able to learn about the challenges that those who were or who had claimed the role of opinion makers and they had been created with the role of opinion leaders, which they faced in the management of Africa Habitat. I shared a lot of things. I heard a lot of things. I observed a lot of things, and the conclusion which made me to learn a lot of things that the opinion makers and opinion leaders face a lot of challenges in the management of Africa Habitat. The first half an hour that we have talked about actually is summarized by this one sentence. Next. Now, in my journeys across Africa, because of that concern and feeling of having been shaped and sharpened as an Africa spear, wherever I went and wherever I met, wherever I got involved in, the images of opinion makers and opinion leaders who were in the management of Africa Habitat, three characters were always coming across. And then eventually when I sat down and having discussed it, including Kwame, whom who were discussing this thing, that there were three categories of opinion makers and opinion leaders. There were those who were remainers, and we call them D1, those who were remainers. Then there are those remainers are the ones who found the Africa that had been taken control of by the Berlin privateers. And they found that as opinion makers and opinion leaders, they could be taken advantage of, but they preferred to continue promoting what had been privatized by the Berlin Africa. And they just wanted to continue being opinion makers and opinion leaders, but they were critically remainers who wanted the Africa as privatized by Berlin, but then their role as opinion makers and opinion leaders to be just sustained and continue doing so. Next. Then there was another category of opinion makers and opinion leaders. These are the quasi-residents. They were concerned about the privatization of Africa Habitat. At the same time, they were the reason in ranks, and as opinion makers, opinion leaders, reason in the ranks, and they became what you would generally say, we accept where Africa is now. We accept Africa is now, but then the thing is that where we are now as makers and the leaders, we can continue with the managing the affairs as it is, but at the same time, negotiate with the Berlin Africa of how we can continue managing the Africa habitat. Next. Now, then when you look, when I looked at all these things, there were then those who are rejectionists. There are those who just wanted the Berlin demolished, Berlin got rid of out of Africa, and Africa, management of Africa habitat taken control of by our opinion makers and opinion leaders. So those three categories of opinion making and opinion leading still remains with us, and it still continues to remain with us, that even when we are involved in a conversation, those kind of positions keeps on coming out and as a challenge. Are we talking about the behavior, attitude, and all these things for Remainers, or you are quasi-dissidents, or you are rejectionists? And those challenges still remains in the opinion makers and opinion leaders in the management of Africa habitat. Next page. Now, the assessment, as I had mentioned, or as I was mentioning about the Berlin Africa. Berlin Africa presents the main challenge to taking back ownership of Africa habitat. By the time 1884, where the Berlin Conference rolled out the tools for taking back the Africa ownership of Africa habitat, it had been Africa habitat had already been taken over by previous organizations and business factors and all these things, which all converged into Berlin, and then from their learning of what Africa has and what Africa offers, what Africa is in relationship to the rest of Europe, that it was important for the continuation of controlling the resources of Africa, controlling the people of Africa, controlling the direction of management of Africa, and that is where we had all the modeling, the construction, the development, the proposals, and passages for movement, for retention, and all these things became what became Berlin Africa. But of course, everybody later on removed the word Berlin and later Africa, but then they had constructed everything like ownership of the Africa resources, Africa Conference. Africa was now a farm, a big farm that was now owned by Berlin. But then the owners of Africa were now just like farm owners. But then the farm owners were now Berlin, so they could not be farm owners, so they became farm workers. So the whole of the Africa person became just a farm worker, and Berlin's retention of ownership, stayed in that. Next. Now, one of the things that makes it impossible for our Africa person to overcome Berlin and by the challenges that Berlin imposed on Africa was about the governing stool. The governing stool of Africa, of managing Africa society or Africa person and all these things, the governing stool was smashed. Now, the governing stool really is a stool or where the ancestors the way they govern Africa, the way they govern the society, the way they govern the community was around a stool. And this stool is where the Africa culture was the leading edge, where everything else was delegated the responsibility for managing the Africa habitat. That is where the stool is. Now, this was a three-legged stool. Now, if you go to any Africa place or wherever the Africa stool is, you'll find that it was always a three-legged stool with the seat. And that seat, sitting on it, was a delegated responsibility of which then everything about the decision making about what happens in the other three legs of where the stool, which stabilizes the stool, was left to be present. Now, this stool, since it was the presence of Africa culture being on top of management of everything, it was about culture. Now, if this was smashed, then what remained? The Africa became a primitive person. Africa culture became a primitive presence. And the thing that remained was about how do we govern Africa under economics? How do we govern Africa under social relationship? How do we govern Africa under political relationship? So then those three, the economic management, social management, and political management. The culture about Africa, which was central in this tool, was smashed. So that is something which, it needs to be understood in that Africa model of governance, which was a flat organization, or which related to wherever the presence of the stool was and its three legs. It was a flat organization, and all those things which are there was smashed. Go on, next. Now, Africa person, they didn't give up. They didn't give up. The ancestors and those who came, those who were left, the Africa, whatever the condition in Africa with the Berlin and wherever, they were always aware that they needed to make better decisions. They needed to make better decisions. Now, they never gave up. So they worked very hard. They worked very hard. They did all the farming, all the fishing. They did everything that the environment of African environment offered them to try to get their spears to acquire the tools for making better decisions. And they succeeded in making this possible for the Africa spears to access facilities, institutions, and all these things, whereby that Africa spears, which are now their spears, to acquire the tools for backpack, where they could be shaped, where they could be sharpened, so that they could be, when they are sharper and sharpened, they would be able to be the kind of access to tools which would then make it possible to make better decisions. Now, in Africa now, we have all kinds of qualified people, let me say spears, and who have now acquired the tools for making better decisions. The question now, in my assessment, is that once they have acquired these tools for making better decisions, they did not go and account for these decisions to the people who actually sent them to the institutions and schooling to acquire who shaped them and sharpened them to acquire the tools. No, they instead privatized it, so that all of us we just cannot go back to our owners and say, I've now acquired these tools. You wanted to make better decisions. Now you put the tools to them, and then they now ask for ideas about what they want to do so that they can make better decisions. But instead, we people who acquire the tools to make a better decision, that tools and all these decisions that we just privatized it. It became ours, and our people were, to date, they are completely neglected and they not involved in where decisions are being taken, where decisions are being made. I would add that the decision-making table where these decisions are made, nobody even knows where it is. Nobody. And where the decisions that have been made, where it is being implemented, nobody knows the process for doing it. Next. Next. Yeah. So now I was saying that the Africa spheres are not accounting to the owners of Africa habitat. The outcome of their being shaped and their being sharpened so that they can then make a better decision. Because what it is that Africa, our ancestors were very clear about the line on the sand. The line said that you can go this far, but you cannot cross that line. That one was always very clear. And we lost a lot of our Africa person who was sitting on the stool when the stool was smashed, and we lost all of them. And to date, we don't have any governing stool that takes care of our cultures and everything. So in accounting to the owners, the Africa spheres who have acquired the tools for making better decisions do not account to the owners what the kind of knowledge and the techniques that they have acquired so that the owners of Africa Habitat can make better decisions. That is my assessment of this. Next page. Now, because of avoiding the concept that I know best, so this is what we must do. No, I am trying to say that we are faced with the situation in which we lost the stool. We are faced with the situation in which our spears and who are sharpened and they're supposed to be like our army that can hold our shield and protect Africa, and they are sharpened and they can be supported or encouraged to be able to maintain that line on the sand that you can go this far, not go far. And these are the people who are now, I can say, are members of the intelligentsia. And the intelligentsia needs to get out of wearing these clothes of being very clever and being very wise and being very sharp and being ordering everything down, and come up and get together and say that as the intelligentsia, we need a conference or representative of all nationalities and the communities. We need to have a conference whereby we are going to assess what our situation is, in which we, as a member of the intelligentsia, representative of our nationalities and the communities, so that we can get to come together and have a conference about what to do about the situation of taking back ownership of Africa Habitat, so that we can then return the Africa Habitat to the control of the owners. Stage 2. In that proposal, I'm trying to think again loudly that the intelligentsia conference would consider that once they have arrived at a conference and they are now being recognized that they are now the intelligentsia and the representative national communities, that they could consider, having a grand council of nationalities and the communities. How that will be elected, how it will be chosen, how it will be put in place, but it should be a grand council of nationalities and the communities. Some members of the intelligentsia may be there, members from the conference may be there, or they could be chosen to be part of that grand council of national communities. But then it separates the privatization of the intelligentsia conference, so that they do not then say that, oh, we are the people decided this, but then they say, we have got a grand council of nationalities, we agreed on this, so we got a council of nationalities and the communities that can take this forward. So those could be selected. Stage 3. Now, monopoly is really the issue in my concern about the governance proposal, that the decision-making table for governance by consent, we don't know where it is. We don't know where it is. Now, if the intelligentsia take a lead in having a conference of representative of their national, and then the Grand Council of Nationalities come into place, come into place. Now, when we have achieved those two, then we can now say that we can now develop a decision-making table for governance by consent, because every member of the nationality or communities will now know where the decision-making table is, and they can now access it without, restriction about whether you're a sharp spear or you are not a sharp spear, or you are this or you are that or whatever. But then once we know where the decision-making table is and the governance by consent, then everybody can then access the decision-making table, and they can table whatever it is that they feel concerned about. That is what I like, what I don't like, or what I should do different, so that where the decision-making table for consent governance and where these ideas are concerned about taking control of the habitat, you can then put whatever it is that you feel like that at the decision-making table. Next. Any questions, Anna? Any questions?
Yeah, thank you very much, Jack, for your presentation. So the floor is now opened. Our discussion is in furtherance of the unification of Africa, its liberation, and its development. And in that discussion, Jack has presented to us the situation as it is, that there really is no consent governance on the continent. The nationalities and the communities of Africa, we don't know where the decision-making table is. We don't know who is making the decision for whom and where, and so on and so forth. So the floor is open. Yeah, so the floor is open for any questions to Jack. So let's deal with questions first, and then we will then continue with the discussion around unification and weave Jack's presentation into it. So has anybody got a question? We also have the chat. If you want to put your question in the chat, again, that also is okay. So Jack, there's a question from Amon Bugarukayo. He wants to understand the philosophy that you are using to analyze Africa. So we here, CSG, which is Consensus Study Group, we use a philosophy of Pan-Africanism to analyze Africa. And the philosophy that we use to analyze Africa is there are three types of Pan-African philosophies. To use Jack's terminology, there are the Remainers philosophy. There is a quasi-dissident philosophers or philosophy, and then there is the rejectionist philosophy. And so that is what Jack is using. In our class, we also use same thing. We use different terminologies. We say liberals for the quasi-dissidents, conservatives are the Remainers, and then the progressives are the rejectionists. And so Jack, the question is by Amon is, what philosophy are you using to analyze Africa? That shouldn't surprise you, Jack, because you recall when I also first heard this, I was like, which planet did you drop from? so please, yeah, help us understand.
When the ancestors were working very hard to improve the quality of their lives in the Africa habitat, they went through a lot of things, and in each process, they never gave up. They faced a lot of challenges, and lost lives, lost this, lost that, but they continued. And if you look at, or if you view in any Africa setting, in any of the Africa countries, and you go to the traditional meeting or traditional occasion or something, you will not fail to find the evidence there that the spears are brought in place, the drums are brought in place, there are different equipments, the flutes are brought in place, etc. And all these things are used to try to send the continuation of the message that we should not forget where we came from. We should not forget where we came from. And there are those things that we have lost, like the stool, they are recoverable. I happen to have attended different occasions in Nigeria, in Ethiopia, in Uganda, in Angola, these occasions where they take flutes, drums, horns, and to celebrate whatever, or sometimes to celebrate death, or to celebrate marriage, to celebrate this, or to alert the community about this. They're saying that they are telling us something which we just almost avoid to understand. That the drums tell us this story. The flutes tell us this story. When we dance, this is what we are trying to say. When we flutes or horns and this, that. This is what we are trying to say. Now, to ask me that what philosophy are you using? I said it right at the beginning that I happened to have been in a situation whereby I was also just shaped and sharpened as an African spear. And all these things I learned along the way, in which I did not go to some school to learn this. Of course, I went to school later on. I went to university later on. I got to whatever university qualifications, and I went to different careers and all this. But I did not let those successes push me into privatizing my understanding of what had happened. And I said, no, the ancestors, developed this thing. They worked very hard. These things are there. Our people are still demonstrating to us every day and in every occasion and for every reason that the ancestors left us these tools, left us to protect us, and they worked very hard to shape us into proper spears, and they allowed us to access the shields, and we are spears, we have shields, and it is up to us to use all those things that are available to us in order to recover the Africa habitat.
Thank you very much, Jack. So Amon, if you want to know more, buy Jack's book, which I believe is in the chat. If not, I will add it to the chat, the link to the book where you can find the book. It's there in the chat, Amon. It's on Amazon. Please have a look and get in touch with us through Brother Pigeon, and we can discuss this further. We are still on questions and answers, and my interpretation of what Brother Jack is saying there is to use two words: the African personality. That's the Africa with a K. The African personality is a personality that understands the drum when it beats, the flutes when they are played, the stools when they are where they are, the cultural essence of Africa, that which makes us African, that which means that we are all united, despite the disparate nationalities that Brother Taiwo calls the fractionalization, ethnic fractionalization. Actually, these are the different aspects of the African personality, and that Brother Jack is telling us, you're asking about the philosophy. Brother Jack is telling us that if we want to take back ownership of the Africa habitat, we must recover the African personality. You can put it that way. The African personality must come onto its own, that which wields the spear and the shield and recovers that which is lost. So that is what that's my interpretation of what Jack is telling us. Sister Ida, you have a question.
Yes, I wanted to ask Brother Jack that on his travels, was there a certain place that first started him discovering the art of the spears and the tools that he feels he learned on his travels? Was there some place or some reason that you suddenly started thinking like that, or you found it in several places? Thank you.
Yeah, before Brother Jack answers that question, I hope we all understood what Jack meant by the spear. So the spear is not the tool that is on the book. The spear is us. African men and women are the spears. And when you go to school, the point of going to school is that you are sharpened as a spear. So when you go and learn, whether it's mathematics, history, philosophy, geography, physics, chemistry, whatever you go to learn, the point is to sharpen you as a spear. Because that is what he means by the spear. So I just I'll make that kind of a bit clearer, so that Sister Ida's question is put within context. Yes, Brother Jack, you can now carry on. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a metaphor.
Yes.
No, I don't have anything else. Just waiting for any questions.
Yeah, that was a question. She asked, Sada asked, where in your travels did you first come across the use of the metaphor? Yes.
Right. My career in life is very challenging. I happen to have left my parents' home, and I went to live in Uganda, and I went to study aeronautical engineering in Kenya. I came to UK, and then I got involved. Let me describe this, please. I then got involved with the different understanding of what the liberation struggles was all about. And in that respect, I became one of the, shall I say, guerrilla leaders, military guerrilla leaders. And then we got rid of Idi Amin from Uganda. I was central in that aspect. Now, because of other persons who were standing at a certain corner observing me and had observed me over the period, one person is now the late. That person, we were going to receive or to take control of our fighters, the military fighters who had taken part in the removing of Idi Amin. And I was one of the leading persons in that. Now, that person who was a PhD holder and was a minister in government would sense that I was not being sensitive to the ceremony that was being organized to receive these fighters. So what I in my book I now call it the army, or our army. Now, when I sat down, I was 27, 28 years of age. You know what 27, 20 years of age is? So it's not very much. He invited me to sit near him and listen. And I sat near him, and then he started teaching me that when the drums are being used, when the flutes are being used, when the dancers are making an entry, and when the dancers are changing the tone of the music, and when at the end, what is done and all these things, I was really taken, by surprise as to his interest in teaching me these things. And then I realized that my grandfather, when I was a very young age 9, 10, 11 years of age, he used to invite me to the local ceremonies, and he was quite a sharp, musician, and he would entertain, use the drum, do various things, and different people will react and behave and respond in different ways to these different things that they were talking about, the drumming and now, all those things that used to pass me by until I arrived at the top of the leadership of Uganda, that the whole thing that I used to be taken through with the drumming, with the singing. And so this is what I was being taken through. I was being taught. I was being taught. I didn't know that I was being taught. I thought I was just enjoying myself, but I was actually being taught until I arrived at that peak where we taught. Then I went to Ethiopia, and then I was taken to the different occasions by Ethiopians, and I saw a lot of these things, and I was and it was just reflecting on me, on what I had seen in different places in Kenya, I had seen in different in Uganda, now in Ethiopia. I went to Nigeria, and then again I was being taken by the Nigerians in different occasions, and a lot of things were just it was just hitting me and raising my temperature, and I was just worried. I was wondering, what's going on? What is it that these people are telling us and we don't pay attention to it? I went to Nigeria. I was in northern Nigeria. I was in eastern Nigeria, western Nigeria, and I went to this occasion, and the same thing was being done. And over the years, and I reflected and I said that, look, I was being told these things. I was being taught these things. I must pay attention to them. I must pay attention to them. That's it.
Thank you very much. Yeah. If there are no further questions, we'll open the floor.
Ida just had a hand up. Ida's got a hand up.
Yeah, that is a legacy hand, brother DJ Mr. P. Unless Sister put your hand up again.
She just put it up again, yeah. It's not
she did? Okay, in that case, Sister Ida, follow-up question.
Yes, Brother Jack. I'm wondering, because you've been to all these ceremonies and stuff, and nowadays I don't think any of the schools in Africa particularly teach dance. Yet I see that in Legon, in Accra, I remember a long time ago seeing that they teach dance. In fact, people come from all over the world to learn some of their dances. And I want to ask you, do you think that dance and things like that should be taught in schools? Because I don't think I see it in any of the schools. Thank you.
Yeah, if I go back to the processes which I had gone through earlier, saying that we are just spears. We are Africa spears. We are shaped and sharpened. And some of those things that we are being shaped and sharpened was about acquiring tools for making better decisions. And some of those spears, if you go to any of these places, you'll find that a spear is put in place and a shield is put in place. The thing is that we don't ask. Now, the thing is that in the schools that we have where we are going to acquire the tools for making better decisions, the relationship between acquiring the tools for making better decisions should also relate with those tools which the ancestors had left for us, which has enabled us to be able to demand, in fact, to demand on us that we must do everything possible to take back control over the Africa habitat. All those things are very consistent. Now, why we privatized our tools and we became headmasters, we became teachers, we became lecturers, we became professors and everything, and then we completely forgot that those who are acquiring for tools for making better decisions is that those things have to be accounted for. Now, the institutions that have been constructed in place to enable us acquire tools for making better decisions, having been privatized, the schools don't teach dancing. They don't teach drumming. They don't teach this. They don't teach that. You know, because the whole thing has been privatized. It has no relationship with the owners. So the teaching of these traditional things and all this is about relating all our action and all that to the owners, and that is a part of accounting. We go to account.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I have my own question, brother Jack. How do you relate? Maybe let me share the slide so that I'll go to the page I mean. So in this slide, yeah, this one here about the governance proposal. Are you able to link the Intelligentsia Conference to the unification agenda for us? So what is a link? What should we expect to be the link between a conference where all the ethnic groups or ethnic nationalities are represented and the unification of Africa? Thank you.
The Intelligentsia Conference would first of all revisit the question of their being shaped and sharpened as spears to take back control of the Africa habitat. And then they are expected in that conference to be able to understand that being a member of the intelligentsia and being a representative of the nationalities and the communities, then whatever it is that your nationalities worked very hard to sharpen you to become a member of the intelligentsia. Your communities worked very hard to sharpen you to become a member of the intelligentsia. Now, whatever you're going to produce in the intelligentsia conference is part of the accounting of what the nationalities like, what the nation want, and what the nationalities expect. Now, that is part of the accounting. Now, it is the accounting and the intelligentsia as a shaped spears, as a sharpened spears are to account. And we got to delve into this accounting process of where our role is in accounting. And if we account, who is going to make the decision? It's the owners of the habitat to make the decision. The intelligentsia do the accounting, they do the preparation and everything, they share the whatever the tools that they have, but the owners make the decisions. Now, when the owner makes the decisions, that is what I had not mentioned before, that it is the owners who then delegate the responsibility. They then delegate the responsibility for implementation, what they like and what they don't like.
Thank you very much. So the time is 8:44. We've got 15 minutes to go. So it's time for further discussions on what we have heard, what we started with in terms of the unification of the continent. So we are going to ask everyone to share their thinking on what they've heard so far. We should start with a sister, Sister Shireen. Have you heard enough to be able to make a comment? And Brother Pigeon. Brother Pigeon. Yes, Sister Shireen, hold on. Brother Pigeon?
Yes, I'm here, Brother Kwame.
Are you able to chair the rest of the session?
It's okay, Brother Kwame.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, let's hear from everyone. Thank you.
Yes, proceed, sister.
Yeah, greetings, everybody. I've come in quite late, appointed, because there's so much information been presented by our brother this evening. But because I haven't got the context, you mentioned Idi Amin and your interactions with him. Now, I work for a charity in London, and I see one of his daughters. She actually comes into my charity, and when I speak to, she has mental health. When I speak to other Africans who are from Uganda or from the region around the East African region, and I'm saying that quite loosely, they always about his actions being that which are kind of fallen on the shoulders of his children, the sins of the father, that type of a thing. There's also another school of thought that because he, Idi Amin, this is, because he chased out the Indians out of Africa, a lot of people on the other side kind of give him a lot of kind of kudos for that. But can you just, I obviously have to do my own research, yeah, but can you just give me just a small snapshot of this man? Because although we've watched a lot of, well, when I was younger, we TV channels about him, etc. I just want to have a kind of philosophical, well-researched, just a small understanding of this man, if we can, because his ex-wife or his wife, one of his, should I say, lives in central London, and yeah, I would just like to know, because we have a lot of children in London, you know, a little bit of information about him, if that's possible.
Okay, I think I'm not sure if I really got you. I'm struggling to hear you, but I'm thinking you're asking in regards to Idi Amin Dada. Is that right?
Sorry?
Are you asking in regards to Idi Amin?
Yeah, we're not hearing you very well, Shireen. Your voice isn't very clear, Shireen. Can't hear you very well.
Okay, 1 second.
Just text. I can. Okay, text it, please.
1 second.
Then again.
Can you hear me now? Is that better?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah,
the point.
Yeah,
the question.
that's better, yeah. Yes.
Sorry, I was on a speaker. But I know that like time is of the essence. I was saying, basically, I work for a charity, and one of Idi Amin's daughters comes in, and she looks just like him. She is his daughter. She always talks about a lot of the elitist issues. She does have some mental health, and I was saying that when I speak to like other sisters from the East African region, their take on him is always quite negative. But then I'm saying there's also that stance that he kind of chased out the Asians out of Africa because of, you know, like the monopoly on trade that they had, etc., etc. So he's always given kudos for that. What I'm asking is, can you just give me a snapshot of this man? Because obviously I need to do my own research, but just so that I can have an understanding of who this man was. I do need to do research, but because you are, you know, an expert in this field, if you could just give me just a snapshot of who Idi Amin was, please.
Okay, thank you. Brother Jack, are you able to do that, or can you be? Can we connect you to further this conversation even beyond here? But just it's you back first, Brother Jack.
Not now, because I've got some commitment I've got to go and attend to.
So we can connect you for maybe further advancement in regards to this conversation of Amin Dada and your contact and struggle.
Yes.
Okay, Sister Shireen, we'll do that through Brother Kwame, so don't worry. Is that okay, sister? Okay. And let me get to Swahili Africa. What's your thinking, Genevieve, in regards to taking back African habitat or anything to do with the unification of Africa? Brother Swahili Africa, which is Brother Imani, who did the presentation last time for us on the need to disband Africa Union.
No comment, please.
Okay, thank you. Let's get to Brother Aspala from South Africa. Is there any comment in regards to the presentation or anything to do with African Union? Of course, there was a news that we covered here before you came in on ANC deciding now to only make a coalition with the DA instead of other African political parties like EFF or the other party for MK. But in regards to the presentation you've listened to, are you able to share something?
Yeah, General, no, I don't have anything to share now, but I will in the coming stages of the meetings.
Thank you. Okay, Brother Mafole. Then I'll come to you to Sister Mary. Brother Mafole, Brother Coco. I know you've been on and off, but I hope you can have something to share with us or to add or to comment on this presentation. Brother Coco? Okay. Let me get to Sister Mary.
What I picked in?
Yes?
Sorry about that. I'm on the roof actually, but I can share.
Okay, can you do?
I think we are owed a session on Comrade Idi Amin because he's misunderstood. Number one. Number two, it looks like what Brother Jack said was we have been sold away by, or we have been bored, let me say, by the Berlin Conference. Regardless of the liberation we got, it was too late. It has been too little, too late. We have forgotten who we are. So the question always is, how do we rediscover that? How do we take back control? How do we rediscover ourselves? And it looks like people like Idi Amin maybe went about it, trying to rediscover Africa, the Africanness, but maybe he went about it the wrong way. But we really need a session on Idi Amin. I'd like to support Sister Shireen on that one. But what I was really intrigued about is the admission that we lost out. We lost out, regardless of the liberation that we got. We have it in name only. We have it in name only, which is something which I've been saying. And that's what Comrade Dr. Nkrumah was saying. Is what Dr. Nkrumah has been saying as well. And most of us, we are not focusing on that. We are focusing on economics. We are focusing on other things. We are not really focusing on taking back our sovereignty. I think that is the most important for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Coco, for that your input. Brother Carrington, of course, Brother Jack has also not left us without a proposal. He has put forth some of the proposals in regards to governance. The biggest problem in our conversation today is our governance system. We've discussed democracy, we've discussed failures of leaders, we call them puppets and everything else. And he's putting forth a proposal here. And when he talks of nationalities, he refers to what white man call tribes. He sees them from an angle of a nationality or communities. And there is a need to have either union or unity of these nationalities, not unity of the Berlin borders. And in that level, we can have a grand council where the communities can sit together and discuss what is needed on behalf of the people. But Brother Carrington, any of your comments or contribution in regards to the presentation by Brother Jack, or anything to do with the unification of Africa, which is part of our analysis today?
Thank you very much. I will allow me to say elder to our elder Jack, because he is our elder and our neighbor from Uganda. We are from Kenya. We are your neighbors over there. That was a wonderful presentation, a nice conceptual approach, a conceptual reorganization of the understanding of Africa. I really enjoyed it. And regarding the specific thing you've talked about, Brother Pigeon, I have seen related proposals on reorganization of our political system around nationalities. It is true. The Oromo, for example, of Ethiopia and Kenya are, I think, 30 or 40 million. Somebody check and correct me. So there are several countries in Europe which are smaller, much, much smaller than the Oromo. So when you call the Oromo a tribe, what exactly do you mean here? So these are nationalities. I would support such a system similar to the Ingonyama Trust in South Africa and the Buganda Kingdom in Uganda, for example. I would support such a system because there are more invested responsibilities among these leaders. I think our political leaders, they're not just puppets. They themselves are disconnected from the population. They consider themselves above the population. They are not of the population, at least in mentality, and this is introducing difficulties in our governance. But I was really happy with the conceptual reorganization, including the concept of the spear, which I really enjoy. The use of models of thinking from Africa. Thank you very much, Elder Jack, for coming, and thank you, everyone. Asante.
Can I say something, please?
Oh, yes, please. Brother Mani, please.
Yes. Sorry for that. Because the last one who just made a comment, I think it is good that I say something. You guys, I'm in Ethiopia, right?
Yes.
And he mentioned about the Oromo, which are actually called Borana in Kenya. They are around 70 million, if I'm not mistaken. So, according to the information we get from Minister of Education, so last time I had a chance to talk to the Minister of Education in Oromia region. But anyways, so that's not what the reason why I want to talk about. I want to talk about the ethnicity or ethnics. Unfortunately, that is the biggest problem we have to face. Ethnics are another disaster in Africa. Very bad in terms of how it has been operating, because ethnics here in Ethiopia, you guys know that we don't have peace, and it's all based on ethnics. Actually, the country is very sick actually because of ethnics. But also now on here, if anyone maybe from Nigeria, you may know exactly these things called Biafra things. It's basically based on Igbo people, and there is Hausa and the Yoruba and the other ethnics as well. So the country is not at peace based on ethnics as well. And even if you look in Eastern Congo too, you found the ethnics have very big problem. So to present them or to give them chance to come to any dialogue, I think will be something that Nyerere refused. The government should not be involved in anything deals with ethnics. The elder of ethnics should take care of that. So that is my position. I think that if we want to do that, I know that some ethnics are bigger than countries, especially like Yoruba or Hausa or Igbo, and like the Zulu ethnics big, or Baganda, and so on. But I don't think it is good move to involve them in politics. And that means if we do so, we're gonna have to bring the small ones and the big ones, all of them together.
Thank you, Brother Imani. Whatever Brother Jack is proposing is that, do you think we operating in countries like today, are we still not fighting? Well, rather, if you have to unite ethnicity like the Oromo to be together as Oromo, not Oromo of Ethiopia fighting Oromos of Kenya because of a board of grazing, and they see themselves Kenyans while others see themselves Ethiopians over the Berlin problem. But we have 1 minute to go. We've done presentations on ethnicity for the last over 3 sessions that are available on our YouTube channel, and we checked on whether and why African cannot unite on ethnical or ethnography or something like that, ethno-linguistic, because we don't have the majority ethno-linguistic as Brother Taiwo proposed. So this is a presentation we've had in the past. Unfortunately, we are having 2 minutes to go. So a minute to Sister Chisomo and a minute to Lieutenant. Then Brother Jack will close it for us, only in 2 minutes. So please, a minute each, please. Sister Chisomo.
Okay. I was just trying to understand the concepts. We were given 3 different concepts and how it relates to this presentation. But anyway, in terms of sharpening the spears, and it depends on who is sharpening you, isn't it? So as in the process of being sharpened, that's when you lose the stool. That's when you lose the tradition, the ethnicity, the communities, because you're going towards whoever is sharpening you. Like the rest of us have been educated in the West. So in the end, we're dropping everything else. We look at it as primitive and whatnot. And our governments as well are taking the same approach, dropping all the traditions and taking the approach of their funders and their sponsors and their masters. So they're dropping everything. As a result, generations coming up, they don't know those traditions we had. In Malawi, we used to have, during independence, we used to have from north to south, every district would turn up with their type of dance. So we knew which dance is from which district and which dances, which songs and whatnot. You identified them by the dance. But since the subsequent governments just dropped that tradition, as a result, children growing now don't have no clue what dances are, which dances. Some people are trying to catch up, but they're doing it wrong. So that's when we lose the table for governance. And it goes back to the Africa Union as well. Where is the table for governance?
Thank you, Sister Chisomo. We'll discuss this further. Lieutenant, we are 1 minute late. Please, in a minute. And
can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. One of the things I would like to say is that, particularly for the West African countries who were the victims of the transatlantic slave trade, that in terms of building organizational building, the infrastructure that will be necessary to organize yourselves, funding towards that, then one might apply to the Church of England reparations for slavery. We see 100 million of the Church of England's money, which is there, as an investment fund, and up to another 900 million from other people who were involved in the slave trade, but that isn't so sure. But 100 million is sure, and it's an investment, but there's some money should be available from that if you apply to try and get in money for infrastructure to help set up your whatever you're doing. If you understand, and similarly, when we talked about the dances and stuff, that sort of thing might cover, particularly if it affects places like Ghana, Nigeria, Sierra Leone, where the slave trade impacted them. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Lieutenant, for cutting you short. Just that we are way past our time. We don't always extend that much.
No problem.
But we meet every Saturday, and we'll look forward to meet you again every Saturday and the next Saturday. Brother, back to you, Brother Kwame, for Elder Jack to make his final remarks. Brother Kwame?
Brother Pigeon, Brother Jack has to attend to other things, so he's not here. So
okay, thank you. Let me finish it.
Yeah, I'll thank you and us all here on his behalf. Thank you for listening. Thank you for coming, and thank you.
Okay. So thank you very much, comrades, for your attendance today. We have actually gone extra mile to analyze our news in terms of unification. So be prepared to do that analysis for us even in the next term when you share your news. But finally, permit me also to say that next week on Saturday, we are discussing colorism. Colorism is a presentation we are having next week on Saturday. It became a heated debate in our group, and we've decided to set a time for it. How is it? Are you African because how darker you are, or as long as you're dark, is your Africa? Is our lightness or our darkness in terms of our colors as Africans being a factor to disunite us, or it can be used to unite us. And this presentation will have various people will be putting their opinion forth. Of course, Brother Kwame will be also giving his opinion in regards to this. So we are looking to that conversation next Saturday. We'll share this in advance. And on Thursday, we are still going on with our conversation on our reading and study of our philosophy, which is our main class, consciousness. And here we have been discussing more about the powers of the priesthood and the actually tells a revolution in terms of explaining nature in terms of nature. It's a very interesting conversation, a very interesting class that I'm looking forward to have all of you who are interested to join us so that we study together. This is our philosophy and our ideology for decolonizing Africa. So for now, thank you very much. I'll be sharing the recordings by latest Monday so that you can catch up and watch it later. Thank you very much. Back to Brother Kwame.
Yeah,
Thank you, Brother Jack.
Thank you. Brother Jack, I thank the listeners and all of us here on your behalf. Did you have anything to say? Any concluding comments before we stop the recording?
No, I've nothing to say. I said thank you very much for allowing me to air my views and my experiences, and also to be able to introduce my writing, from which is really captures everything that I would say. I started considering myself as a spear, as a sharpened spear, and associating with like a consciousness study group, which is talking about taking back control of ownership of Africa Habitat. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.